Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. In what I can only imagine Ripple would perceive as an early Christmas gift, SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce is stepping up dissent against her SEC colleagues. And she has stated also that SEC Supreme Leader and Dictator Kim Jong-Gary is not her boss. She publicly stated that in an interview on the Thinking Crypto YouTube channel. And so what I want to cover in this video is how she's been stepping up dissent against her colleagues, and rightfully so, by the way. She recently gave a speech in Austin, Texas, and she titled this speech here, you can see it on the SEC website, Lawless in Austin, and she, man, I tell you what, she tore the SEC's actual approach a new one. Absolutely. And so what I did is I printed up this speech and I read through the whole thing this morning. And the speech was posted just several days or so ago. And I finally got around to read this thing, and it is pure gold, absolutely correct. And this right here, this is one of the reasons I want to highlight this on this channel, is because this is ammo for Ripple in their quest to, end up victorious against the SEC in their lawsuit. And I think history will prove that Ripple's on the right side of history, and certainly XRP holders are. But I also want to be clear at the outset, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. That's all that's going on here. And so first I'll mention this. I'm not going to play this clip, but there was a clip shared by XRP. I just highlighted this roughly minute and a half worth of content from the interview between the Thinking Crypto host Tony Edward and SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce. And she ended up stating, because Tony said that Gary, your boss, blah, 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 something to that effect. And then she paused and she stopped. She said, no, Gary is not my boss. And this is actually, excuse me, this is actually good to know. So Hester's one of the most high up employees at the SEC, but Gary seems to not have any actual powers over her or anything this that, which is good. I think that you'd prefer that. I was kind of hoping it was set up this way, because you have 5 commissioners that determine when or whether to or when to bring legal action against any individual or business entity. And you can imagine if there's some sort of boss-employee relationship, you're not going to get an honest vote necessarily from these commissioners. So that's good. I was actually hoping that. Now, I certainly have not been privy to the inner workings of how they converse or anything like that, and not being in that world, not sure exactly what the hierarchy looks like and how it's structured. But it is good to know that that's how it works. I mean, that's what one would hope for, right? And so as a result, that's why you're seeing this blowback. She's not at risk. Now, I imagine she's not exactly making a bunch of friends doing what she's doing, but she's doing the right thing, and it's honorable, and it's the brave thing to do. And so let's go ahead and jump in now. And again, just please, as I'm going through this, remember, this is one of 5 humans on the planet that got to vote whether or not to bring legal action against Ripple. And so we don't know how she voted. I believe at some point in the future, once this case is all settled or fully adjudicated, I believe that will be made public, but we do not know right now. If I had to guess, I would guess that she didn't vote for it, but even if she did, she's still right on the whole about what she's saying about crypto here. Sorry, guys. Let me get a sip of water here. All right. And so here it is. This is what's on your screen right here. And the first couple sentences, they're going to kind of make you like roll your eyes and chuckle a little bit, but I got to mention this. Here's how she started the speech. Thank you to the Texas Blockchain Summit for the chance to be here today. I have to start with my disclaimer that my views are my own and not those of the Securities and Exchange Commission or my fellow commissioners. I know we in the XRP community in particular are sick of hearing that line. I understand that, but here's the deal. The reason people are tired of the just my opinion comments only because there's no official SEC policy on crypto. That's it. I don't actually have a problem with individuals stating their own opinion, which may be at odds against the agency at which they work. Or maybe even if it's not at odds, maybe there's not an official position. Maybe okay, fine. in a general sense, I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with it when the SEC is acting as though there's clarity when there's not, and then trotting out high-ranking SEC officials to state things that are intended for the market to utilize as guidance when the SEC itself doesn't want to be pigeonholed to any specific policy. So they take this shady approach, and then it results in regulation by enforcement. So no, I don't have a problem with this actual statement in and of itself. I take issue with the SEC not having an official position. If there's an official position and then an employee had their own opinion and they publicly stated it and it wasn't in line with the SEC, of course that's fine. Somebody saying something, I do understand, of course, that doesn't make it official policy of the SEC, but where does the buck stop? When you have all the highest ranking, not all, but many of the highest ranking people at the SEC, including Gary Gensler, pretending that there's clarity, like, where does the buck stop? To me, it just doesn't make sense. And so then there was also this, because she did the first third of her speech or so. It was really well written. I'm not going to really read much of it, but she went into great length to compare the Wild West to the crypto landscape today, because Gary Gensler, you may recall recently a number of times he stated that crypto is basically the Wild West. And she went on to explain in her speech that, as far as the Wild West, it actually, so there wasn't, back in the day, there wasn't sufficient regulation or law over the West. And so what happened in that vacuum is people participating, living out there, and engaging in the markets that existed out there, they had to figure it out and create their own law effectively. And so any sort of lawlessness, it was people attempting to correct it, but it was done in this vacuum where the government wasn't paying attention. And so consider this. There's this quote from her speech, and it says, "It appears in the absence of formal government, that the Western frontier was not as wild as legend would have us believe. The market did provide protection and arbitration agencies that functioned very effectively, either as a complete replacement for formal government or as a supplement to that government." And so look, if crypto in the Wild West, if crypto is the Wild West, then it's the SEC and Congress's fault for not regulating it. But the truth is that in the absence of governmental leadership, markets govern themselves, and that is what you're seeing in crypto today. There are rules of the road, and it's not that the crypto asset class doesn't want the government to provide color. Of course, if you're in crypto, you know this. Responsible actors in the space want regulatory clarity, want it, right? But in a vacuum, without it, what are you to do? And so there's an individual named Andrew Morris that she talks about here, who, after a stint at Case Western Reserve University, moved west and eventually ended up in Texas, researched the Wild West, and identified numerous forms of effective private regulation, which were effective precisely because they faced competition. And then he's quoted as stating the following: "Once there was wealth in the West, government's arrival was inevitable." Well, doesn't that sound familiar? And Hester Peirce then notes, "Perhaps then it is inevitable on the crypto frontier too." So what do you know? Crypto became sufficiently large, and now they're out, and it's a money grab and also a power grab. That sure as hell is what it looks like to me. And so then Hester Peirce continues. "The persistence of both self-regulation and calls by the crypto community for clarity from government regulators suggests that lawlessness is not the prevailing culture of the crypto frontier." Exactly. And so we just want legal clarity. I'm telling you, the vast majority of humans operating in this space, they're like you and me. Just want legal clarity, things done by the books. I don't want lawlessness. I sure as hell don't. I doubt you do either. Most humans don't. But we don't have sufficient clarity from them. And then Peirce continues here. "Ironically, our gunslinging ways in the old, supposedly staid government regulatory world back east are causing people to question our commitment to the rule of law. Let me explain by raising several questions about our regulatory approach to date. I will conclude by suggesting that it is not too late for government regulators to set clear rules that respect the unique attributes and challenges of the life on the crypto frontier." And this is where it gets really interesting, and this is where I'm telling you, It's basically Christmas in October for Ripple's attorneys. That's what I'm thinking, and that's not why she's saying this. Like Hester Peirce, she's just speaking what is true, and it happens to not be good for the SEC, and it happens to be good for Ripple. And so she had this little section of her speech where she had the subtitle, "Is there really legal clarity around digital assets?" Ooh, yes, indeed, the $1 million question, right? A fundamental area of conflict between the SEC and the public is how much legal clarity there is around a digital asset. The safe harbor I proposed for token distribution events acknowledges there is uncertainty about when crypto asset offerings implicate the securities laws. But the prevailing attitude at the SEC is that there is clarity, so why bother with a safe harbor? So let me just pause there to state this kills the SEC's legal argument, because it goes back to Ripple's fair notice defense, which is the idea that, of course, Ripple being fully transparent, or as transparent as one could ever... Well, I'll tell you what, Ripple's the most transparent company in all of blockchain. That's for damn sure. And so Ripple being as transparent, more transparent than anyone else, like the idea that what they were doing was somehow shady, and the idea that they actually should have known that what they were doing was wrong was complete nonsense. And here you have one of 5 SEC commissioners acknowledging that there is not sufficient legal clarity here. This kills the SEC's argument, and this is one of the top people at the SEC. This is going to absolutely carry weight, which is why I'm telling you, this is an early Christmas present for Ripple, and it just keeps on coming. And then she said the following: "The idea that there is clarity as to when crypto assets are securities must come as a surprise to the lawyers advising crypto projects that have struggled with this issue for years." Yeah, must come as a great surprise, right? Take, for example, the public feedback we received relating to the Commission's statement regarding the custody of digital asset securities by broker-dealers, which distinguishes between digital asset securities and non-security digital assets, the latter of which we will not permit to be custodied by special purpose broker-dealers. In response, many commenters asked for clarity on what constitutes a digital asset security, and asserted that it would be unfair to expect a broker-dealer to conduct the analysis given the lack of clarity. Moreover, if clarity means that essentially all tokens are to be deemed securities, then why even establish a commission position on special purpose broker-dealers at all? Well, that's a good question. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the least. But what is the SEC doing? And then she says, the SEC points to Supreme Court precedent and our own growing list of enforcement actions, and says the case is closed. Most digital assets are securities. Even if we were to accept enforcement as a proper way to provide clarity, it's not working. And let me just pause to state there, I'm glad she said even if we were, because we're not. People in the crypto space absolutely are not happy with the idea of enforcement as a way to figure out what is legal and what is not. Can you imagine how unfair that is? Think about this. You're operating as an entrepreneur in the United States. There isn't sufficient regulatory clarity. You're doing everything you can to not do anything illegal, and then the SEC just comes after you, and you're supposed to have your life turned upside down and risk financial ruin so that the entire space gets clarity, and the SEC thinks this is remotely ethical or acceptable? Absolutely not. So thankfully, at least in the case of Ripple, they've got both the funds and the cojones to go, respond to the SEC in kind and take them to task. And in all the pre-trial stuff, it looks like they're doing a damn good job, and things look favorable at this point in time. So that's why I'm optimistic for the outcome of this case, whether it's settlement or full adjudication. We'll see what it looks like, but certainly optimistic here. Anyway, Hester continues. Definitive determinations of securityness have only occurred in the few instances in which a court rather than the commission has decided the matter. Even in those instances, a determination that a token was offered initially as a security does not say anything about the token itself being a security, either at the time of the initial sale or in secondary transactions. Exactly. And so Like, the SEC lawyers disagree and say that the very nature of XRP itself makes it a security. That is not true, and they know better, which is why I'd characterize that as a lie. They know better. They're not stupid. How many securities how many cryptocurrencies by the nature of them existing are securities? Zero. There are zero cryptocurrency securities on the entire planet. If there's any exception to that, bring it up to me. Maybe there's something I haven't thought of. But right now, I've been racking my brain. The answer, as far as I know, is there are zero cryptocurrencies that are securities, because the nature of something existing doesn't make it a security. It's the manner in which it was sold, the totality of the situation, which is why when you look at the W.J. Howey Co. and the Howey test back in the 40s, the oranges and orange groves in questions, the fact that there was a security contract there and that's what the court found, it doesn't mean that oranges, the underlying oranges, a big part of the case, were securities themselves. And so we understand this, the SEC understands this, but they're pretending that's not the case, which is completely disingenuous and destructive to the space. Anyway, Hester continues. Most of our crypto enforcement actions, however, have not been litigated actions. Rather, they have ended in settlements, which are not good vehicles for careful legal analysis. When a party... Let me pause. I've been bringing this up forever, too, which is why Coinbase, when the SEC went after them, because they wanted to launch their LIN product, which offered their customers interest-bearing accounts, so they told the SEC, hey, here's a product we want to launch. Others are doing it in the United States. We want to do it, too. The SEC said, hey, if you do this, we're going to sue you, and we're not telling you why. That's effectively what happened here. And so they backed down. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, my gosh, you need to take it. You need to take the charge to the SEC. This is not the time to acquiesce and sit back, because what can ultimately happen is precedent's going to get set one way or another. And if precedent is set because of a settlement with a company that didn't have the funds or cojones to fight back, well, if whatever happens and precedent is set there, Coinbase is going to be subject to that. But if they could just kind of like sack up and they've got the money and just fight, maybe they could have a better outcome than some sort of smaller entity that will acquiesce. And that's the concern there. But they're not, unfortunately. So anyway, I don't. To me, that's just frustrating. They should do something. But anyway, Hester continues here. When a party settles an SEC enforcement action, it often is trying to get the case wrapped up so it can move on. It has no incentive to force the SEC, as a condition of the settlement, to lay out a clear legal analysis. In cases when a platform is involved, the SEC generally states only that some of the digital assets were securities, without specifying which ones are or why. Commissioner Elad Roisman and I raised this issue in conjunction with the coin schedule settlement. Perhaps this approach is understandable, since the parties to the settlement might not include the parties with the keenest interest in the security/non-security status of that token. Nevertheless, if the SEC cannot easily articulate an unassailable legal theory for why particular assets are securities, is the line as clear as the SEC maintains it is? The ambiguity ultimately serves us well, because it effectively forces any actor with any connection to digital assets into our regulatory jurisdiction. And right there, Hester Peirce, SEC Commissioner, is admitting that the SEC is engaging in a power grab. Did you hear that last sentence right there? The ambiguity ultimately serves us well, because it effectively forces any actor with any connection to digital assets into our regulatory jurisdiction. Exactly. And she doesn't like that. So she's admitting that, yes, this is a power grab, effectively. I'm characterizing it as that. That's not how she worded it. But she's not in favor of that. She's calling it out. So props to Hester Peirce for acknowledging what reality is. The rest of us can clearly see it. Everybody else outside the SEC, we can see it, and we don't believe that everybody else at the SEC doesn't think that's happening. Of course it's happening. Unquestionably. And then moving on a little bit later in the speech, she said, we do not need to fear stablecoins. The Federal Reserve has traditionally supported a responsible private sector innovation. Consistent with this tradition, I believe that we must take strong account of the potential benefits of stablecoins, including the possibility that a US dollar stablecoin might support the role of the dollar in the global economy. And so look, SEC dictator and supreme leader Kim Jong-gary says stablecoins are poker chips. That's what he called them recently, and he wants to destroy them. He believes they are securities. Well, what about expectation of profits? Because in order for something to be a security, one prong of the Howey test is that there must be an expectation of profit. Stablecoins are stable in price. Where's the profit? Where's the expectation of profit? And so here you have just a tremendous power grab. Gary insisting that everything under the sun is a security if he just wants to regulate it. That's exactly what he's doing here. And then as far as the U.S. dollar benefiting from stablecoins, understand that even though stablecoins are not issued by the government, they are a representation of the dollar, and it's effectively in that sense, just ever increasing the dollar's reach. That's always, or at least maintaining it where it already exists. And so that for the United States dollar, that's not bad. Now, there can be bad things. You can talk about the centralization. Is it sufficiently backed? Is there a possibility of this all caving, crumbling down? All legitimate questions. But that's why I'm saying regulate it. Have policy in place. Must these stablecoins be backed by a dollar for every one that exists? Things like that. And the answer is probably yes on that particular point. But these are the conversations that should be had. And then she has this little subsection of her speech titled, "Are we protecting investors or denying investors opportunity?" Oh, and this is one that really grinds my gears, folks, because the SEC is diminishing our opportunity. They're supposed to be protecting us, protecting investors, but they're just diminishing opportunity. And this is something that I bemoan somewhat frequently on this channel. It's that government, they know best. They know best what's for us. They know what we should and should not be doing. They don't like something, and so they're protecting us for our own good. We may not have this opportunity. That's effectively what it is. Yay, bigger government. Here's what she said. Embedded within the negative Wild West analogy for the crypto frontier is a concern that unwitting and unwilling investors are being harmed by participating in the crypto markets. To those who do not view the opportunity to participate in these markets as valuable, the lack of regulatory clarity in the United States could actually be a way of protecting investors from harm. If ambiguity prevents them from participating, so much the better. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about here. They don't like it. They know what's best for us. We shouldn't have the opportunity. That's exactly right. And then she says, from this perspective, that some projects and platforms, for example, exclude Americans because of regulatory uncertainty is actually a good thing. It is only the projects that fail to keep Americans out that face enforcement actions. I got a golf clap just for that part right there. We're not quite done yet, but still, that's a good little golf clap opportunity right there. Then she says, widespread geo-blocking of Americans should concern American regulators, even if it does lighten their regulatory load. Consider, for example, recent well-publicized examples of airdrops that excluded Americans. An airdrop is essentially a free allocation of tokens to, for example, participants in a network. These tokens are a way of rewarding network participants. Why would we want U.S. participants to be excluded from receiving the reward due to them? Take a look at Twitter after one of these airdrops. The SEC is not being thanked. And so, boom, there again, SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce admitting the SEC is not protecting us. That's absolutely, and that's the way I'm characterizing it. That's not how she, but that's the message that's being conveyed. Clearly, the public, the investors, you and I, we do not feel that the SEC is helping us. We don't feel like we're being protected. We don't feel like we're having expanded opportunities pertaining to investments. None of that. We feel like there's a reduction of opportunity regarding the world of investment, and we feel attacked, financially attacked. Absolutely, we do. And why wouldn't we? And then she also states, the good actors want to know which digital assets are securities so they can figure out how to comply with the securities laws. But we have done little during my nearly 4 years on the commission to explain what that would look like. I lay the blame on myself and my colleagues on the commission. We simply have not allowed staff the latitude to consider the hard questions around how crypto can operate within the securities framework. The way forward is not to drag entities into the commission through enforcement actions and brute force them into a regulatory regime that is not actually well suited for them. Rather, we should take a methodical approach, one that provides answers to the key questions to which market participants need answers. Man, this is absolutely killer stuff here. So, as far as her saying, she said, quote, "I lay the blame on myself and my colleagues on the commission." Well, I'm going to guess that she's just being very humble there. Maybe there's information I'm missing that very well may be the case, but I don't see how anyone could reasonably blame Hester when she's the voice of reason and she's the one that's saying, no, we do need this clarity. She has been fighting for that for several years. But her colleagues are preventing that from taking hold. I don't see how you can blame Hester for that. So if she thinks that she's to blame, I would be curious to ask her why. I just frankly don't see it. She's just about the only voice of reason at the SEC at that level. Really, it's her and Eli Roisman, and she's the one that's more outspoken. But yeah, other than that, who else is there? I mean, I couldn't even name another name. Maybe there's others, but I can't name another high up name. I mean, they're keeping it themselves if that's the case. I'm pretty in tune with the people that are speaking out to this degree in crypto. I'm not aware of anybody else. Are you? So this is pretty much it. So I say she's to be applauded. Again, and regardless of how she voted and whether or not Ripple should, face this regulatory action, this legal claim, and I'm willing to bet she didn't vote that way. But regardless, she's right on all of this. She is absolutely correct on 100% of this. And it couldn't be more clear. But when you have this different mindset and worldview of we know best and we can protect the stupid people that don't know how to get their shirts on in the morning, because that's the way they look at you. You're too stupid to manage your own finances. We're going to do it for you. That's the approach. Big Daddy government. That's exactly it. I can't get behind that. And it's resulting in what you're seeing today. All this regulation by enforcement, all this nonsense. Let me know what you think below, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. I am not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.